Well, it's a couple things. I mean, like, for example, I was just in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a state that elected John Fetterman to the United States Senate in 2022. But here's the interesting thing, Pete, that despite John Fetterman getting elected in a year that should have been a red tsunami for the Republican Party, the Democratic Party of Pennsylvania is actually in shambles currently. They had to have a round of layoffs in 2023, getting rid of staffers. And in fact, they're so incompetent that they printed out thousands of voter cards telling people to vote in this year's election on November 8th, which is a day after Election Day. So when we think of the left, I know that we probably think of the party apparatus or we think of the state parties and structures, but it's so much more than that. I mean, they have NGOs, non-government organizations, they have 501c3s and 4s. And I think what we're really coming to recognize is it's not so much the state parties, it's really all of these outside groups that are working in congruence, hand in glove. And those efforts are the difference in states like Georgia, 10,000 votes, Wisconsin, 20,000 votes, Arizona, 20,000 votes. And I think we're coming to realize that if Republicans are going to have a seat at the table, then we must do the same. And we must have all of these groups working hand in glove if we're going to compete and make Joe Biden a one-term president.
You know, I've been waiting a long time, believe it or not, but actually patiently waiting in the wings to get my next guest on for the following reasons. He's hearing this for the first time, so I'm going to let him know the first time that I knew of the name Scott Presler. There was some incident going on in Baltimore, and that is a city that's near and dear to our heart. Because during the riots way back when, Freddie Gray, we actually met people in the hood. We got to know them. They let us stay there. They declared like a moratorium against killing white people like me. And the Bloods and the Crips let us come into the hood where they kicked Geraldo Rivera out. He had to stay at City Hall because we were truly concerned about the people in the hood in Baltimore. And they spoke to us. They told us what their needs were, why they were upset, so on and so forth. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, these people need, an exterminator and some paint, and we can clean this place up and give these people, some dignity in the place that they're living. It's just an absolute disgusting mess. And the people wanted that. But that isn't the way the inner city works. So Scott Presler was there. What was he doing? Cleaning up. And I think he had a bucket of paint in his hands. So I've been watching him from that moment when I captured, he captured my attention, watching him, and he hasn't stopped, and he's escalated that theme. Of course, clean up the inner city, get in touch with people, and of course, getting people to vote. He's the most important Republican election activist for such a time as this. His ground game is simple. Register more Republicans and encourage them to engage in early voting, vote by mail, and lawful ballot harvesting. This operation is completely organic, made up of volunteers around the country, and the grassroots letter writing campaign. Now, of course, he's graduated on, per se, from cleaning stuff up, but, voting has a lot to do with it as well. But Scott Presler, that wasn't in my notes. I wanted to tell you. Congratulations to you. I commend you. And I so much appreciated what you were doing for the people that we came to know in the inner city. And we can speak of that, but let's say this, politically, we have to speak of this. When you say that you're a Republican activist getting people to vote, the Democrat model has literally failed. If you want to see the Democrat model, go into every metro area. And if people want to vote the same exact way, expecting a different result. What do they call that?
Insanity.
Insanity. So, sir, I commend you. I'm not just saying this to suck up to you. And I've also stayed back a little bit because I wanted you in front of as many eyeballs and ears as possible. I'll look at it and see that, you know, you're
Thank
still
you.
out there on the big shows and stuff like that. So now I've got this opportunity. We don't want a lull in your action. I want Scott Presler's name to be back up there again, because this is the most important time. During this lull is when we need to be registering people to vote. Now, I'm going to throw back to you. I've gone to rallies, big ones, tens of thousands of people there. MAGA, you know, myself, I go to those rallies. That's politically where I'm at, but that's not going to be the point of the conversation. I've also been to Cleveland, and Al Sharpton is at a church doing a eulogy, and they've got 10 voter registration tables as soon as you walk in to the church. The left side, I don't care what you think about voting, fraud, or whatever, they kick our butts in the ground game. They do. They're registering people to vote. If you're getting together for a smoothie, they're registering to vote. Every opportunity in a public gathering, they're getting people registered to vote. And that kicks our butt, doesn't it?
Well, number one, Pete, thank you for having me. And look, I'm here on the Pete Santilli show. So just because I'm going on other shows doesn't mean you are any less important. And thank you for having me, sir.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to broadcast this, by the way, on Lindell TV.
On Lindell TV.
On Lindell TV.
Lindell,
Yep.
The man with the stash, the man with the pillows. I mean, I'm there.
Yep.
But it's not my intent to be disrespectful, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
But one complaint I have, or one qualm or criticism, is I love that people love President Trump and they want him to be the nominee and they want him to defeat Joe Biden in 2024. But, you know, as you mentioned, the Democrats are so organized. They have so much money. They have data. They have influence. And one criticism I have is, you know, if our goal is to defeat Joe Biden and make sure that we're getting everybody out to vote for our Republican nominee, you know, I ask people to become an election day worker. Let's have safe and secure, fair and free elections. Let's mitigate voter fraud. And the best way to do it is to become an election day worker working inside of the polls. Or let's knock on doors for our candidates. Or let's register new Republican voters. And my one very respectful criticism is people will go to these rallies and they'll go see President Trump in Iowa, or they'll even drive, you know, halfway across the country to go see him. And I love that. I love that passion. But I want to remind people that if you truly want to elect President Trump or Governor DeSantis or whoever your candidate is, I don't care. We have to put that level of passion that we put into going to the rallies and standing in line and camping out into organizing and making sure that we're locking in every single gosh darn Republican vote to make Joe Biden a one-term president. And I mean, we had rally goers at President Trump's rally in Erie, Pennsylvania recently that we were registering voters and signing up people as volunteers and precinct chairs. And I hope to see more of that as we move forward into next year, Pete.
Yeah. And, you know, I want to, we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing, but let's compare that. Let's know. And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of the conservative Republicans have no idea. At this point, we're slow cooked into, oh, it's fraudulent on the other side. But there's an element there that is not fraud. They work aggressively. If there's fraud, they've got a multi-pronged attack. But I'll tell you what, they've got their people engaged. They're on the ground game. They've got a ground game. You cannot deny it. I don't care if you say there's fraud or not fraud. There are people moving and shaking and signing people up with registration cards. But what does it look like right now? What are you seeing the ground game look like on the left side of the spectrum, the liberals?
Well, it's a couple things. I mean, like, for example, I was just in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a state that elected John Fetterman to the United States Senate in 2022. But here's the interesting thing, Pete, that despite John Fetterman getting elected in a year that should have been a red tsunami for the Republican Party, the Democratic Party of Pennsylvania is actually in shambles currently. They had to have a round of layoffs in 2023, getting rid of staffers. And in fact, they're so incompetent that they printed out thousands of voter cards telling people to vote in this year's election on November 8th, which is a day after Election Day. So when we think of the left, I know that we probably think of the party apparatus, or we think of the state parties and structures, but it's so much more than that. I mean, they have NGOs, non-government organizations, they have 501c3s and 4s. And I think what we're really coming to recognize is it's not so much the state parties, it's really all of these outside groups that are working in congruence, hand in glove. And those efforts are the difference in states like Georgia, 10,000 votes, Wisconsin, 20,000 votes, Arizona, 20,000 votes. And I think we're coming to realize that if Republicans are going to have a seat at the table, then we must do the same. And we must have all of these groups working hand in glove if we're going to compete and make Joe Biden a one-term president in 2024.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because guess what? We have a lot of groups, organizations, a lot of them on the conservative side. And all of them need to be committed to all of their functions. They need to. Now, I'm not picking on the Reawaken Tour. I love what they're doing. I mean, there's a great gathering there. We want voter registration tables before you even get in. There needs to be, that's a bigger gathering that everyone's accustomed to. So when you go to a Reawaken Tour, as a matter of fact, I'm going to call Clay Clark and the general and say, we have to do this. All of us groups. And if I have a function, I've got a public function, local meetup, the Pete Santilli show, voter registration needs to be my main focus. So we have groups. We don't need the United Nations and NGOs and George Soros outfits. It can be grassroots, right? Taking the leadership role. Yep.
I was just on Dan Bongino the other day, and he said, Scott, I had a book signing, and the local Republican club reached out to me and said, hey, may we have permission to register voters at your book signing?
Yes.
What a perfect opportunity.
Right.
Why are we registering voters outside of Jason Aldean shows?
That's
Why are we not registering voters at Bass Pro Shop and gun shops and gun shows? Or like my friend Tom Slocum in the state of Texas, yesterday on Sunday, he had a team registering voters at a church to get the evangelicals. And why are we not registering voters at every Sound of Freedom movie theater showing?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Is limitless opportunity and potential, but it means the grassroots have to put themselves in those situations if we're going to be successful.
That's right. Okay. Now, voter registration cards, if you don't mind me asking, because I'm not familiar with this, and it's okay if I'm dumb in the question that I ask. It has to be done at the local level, correct? Within the jurisdiction. I can't do it from the outside. Like for Pennsylvania people, I can't do it from Cincinnati. Is my question.
No, you absolutely can.
I can't.
I'm a Virginian, and I was just at Slippery Rock University outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I went to Penn State University at State College. I am legally allowed to register voters in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, despite the fact that I live in Virginia.
Okay.
You can do the same in California, Ohio, Virginia, etc.
Okay.
So some states have legalities, but generally you are allowed to have outside help registering voters.
Okay. There needs to be a voter registration card, and then obviously a list of those that you register. What is the process generally? Is it different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction?
Well, so for example, when I register voters in Pennsylvania, I'll have the paperwork with me because I do like to take a photo just to show people that I am putting in the work. I am registering voters.
There you go.
Now, you can have a tablet, you can have your computer, et cetera, et cetera. But remember, if I have the paper, I get to save their data, phone number, first name, last name, email address. Because look, if I register you to vote and you've never voted before, how do you know where your polling location is?
Yeah,
what if you need to run the polls? When does it open? When does it close? Do you need an ID in order to vote? Right. So what people really need to understand is, as a part of the voter registration process, is we register them to vote. We stay in contact with the voter, but your job doing voter registration is not done until you have taken that registered voter and actualized them that they have locked in their vote. So really, it's from start to finish. It's not just voter registration. You follow through and make sure they have locked in their vote.
That's outstanding. Good to know. And I'm just thinking through the various groups. They'll come on our show. I want to, through our advocacy with these groups, to come on to also pass that message along. That we all need to be involved. We need to be involved in getting people registered. We always have public gatherings. Shoot, a congressman does a small rally in his local jurisdiction. He can register people to vote at the front counter, or at least the local GOP can do it. There's other groups that will also drive people to these events. So we've got enough manpower, is what I'm trying to say, correct?
We do. Oh my gosh. It's so within our possibility. Guys, right. We can win, but it's also education, because as you mentioned, each state is a little bit different. We're a federalistic society. And for example, in states like Arizona, California, Florida, Kansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Maine, Nebraska, New York, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Oregon, you must be registered as a Republican in order to participate in either the closed primary or the presidential primary. And so, for example, if I'm registering voters in the state of Arizona, but they choose independent, I'm really not doing them a service unless I inform them that in the state of Arizona, it is a presidential preference election, meaning that if they want to vote for either President Trump or Governor DeSantis next year in the primary, they must be registered as a Republican. And the reason why this is so important, Pete, is because some people already feel that there's so much voter fraud or the election is being rigged, etc. How would a voter feel if we did not educate them correctly and they show up next year in 2024 as an independent only to be told, you cannot vote. You are not a registered voter with a party. And that's why we, as the grassroots, must be informed on all of these things to make sure that we're empowering every voter that we register.
All right, that's outstanding. And I'm taking notes here because I want to make sure that I do my, I mean, we all need to do our part. Bucket Brigade. Let's not wait for somebody to get up to a podium and say, all right, everyone, we're going to do education. We have to learn ourselves and then everybody share. Force multiplication, right?
Yeah.
Force multiplication. All right. Speaking of that, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate it. The younger conservatives, are they getting engaged? Because, you know, as you can imagine, the college campuses, obviously, they claim to have exclusive rights, you know, through the communist indoctrination camp known as the universities. Sorry, that's my political spin on that. But there are plenty of young conservatives. What is their impact? Is there enough to make a difference, the younger conservatives, in this next election?
Well, my age group, the millennials, we're kind of the screwed up generation. But I would argue that Gen Z voters are actually much more conservative. And in fact, I just saw recently in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that outside of Philly, the Southeast Corridor, all the troubled children down there, they had a walkout at a school over a policy that was allowing men who identified as women into the girls' restroom. And so for the kids to have a walkout over something to champion women, to empower women, to protect women, and a conservative value, I think that just speaks volumes of this next generation. And so, for example, we need to be there at those walkouts, making sure that all of those high school students that are either 17 turning 18 this November or are 18 are registered to vote. Yeah. And I'll tell you, Noah Formica in the Pittsburgh area, he's 21 years old. I just spent the last couple of days with him registering voters at universities. Sam Feely is in Crawford County, Pennsylvania. I believe he's 20 years old. We have a lot of Generation Z leaders stepping up to the plate. And that's why I think it's so important that when people have voices like you do, Pete, or I do, that we uplift those people, that we help promote the great work that they're doing. Because at the end of the day, a high tide is going to raise all boats. And the last thing that I really want to include is when I went to Slippery Rock in Penn State University, the overwhelming number of people that we registered were not only Gen Z, actually all of them were Gen Z, but the overwhelming majority chose Republican. We were talking about issues like Republicans will make life affordable. Republicans will not shut you down and do the mandates like the Democrats did. Republicans are going to make sure that you're going to be able to buy a car and own a home one day and not be priced out. We're going to make sure that you're going to be able to afford gas and food and not suffer inflation and not have illegal immigration like the illegal immigrant that was on the loose in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania just weeks ago. And I'll tell you that young people are coming over, but we as the grassroots must be there to present our alternative vision to what the Democrats' regressive vision is.
Wow. I'm thinking about I'm literally, as you're talking through this and listening very carefully, the Gen Zers, okay? Boy, do they have a dog in this fight, because the opposite end of the political spectrum to the Republicans are outwardly and openly talking about, like, you'll own nothing and thank us for it, or whatever it is that they say. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that's being said.
You'll own nothing and be happy.
And be happy. You'll own nothing and be happy. I know. I don't want to give it that much credence because they're going to trademark that thing. But you know what? We should trademark it for them. That should be the rubber stamp on why you should not vote for that side. Just to send a mandate. And you have a MAGA shirt on, and I've said this for a long, long time. That's right. Let me show this, because I have said, even in my local community, I've said, you know what, this red hat, back in the day when I was wearing a red hat and it was controversial. Imagine that. It was a feat of courage to wear that red hat. But I would engage with people that would look at me and say, you know what this red hat means? It means that you're working. It doesn't even matter your political persuasion. If you're a Democrat, and you're a Democrat voter, I want you working. I want your family to be secure. I want us to be prosperous. And that's what MAGA means. Now, it's not to take away. I mean, I'm a President Trump supporter. I haven't found anybody else. That's my choice. But MAGA is that interchangeable, because we may have somebody that right before the election is more MAGA than President Trump. If that's what it is and people feel most comfortable with it, we all want to make America great again. We don't want the current trend that we're on right now. We want to go back. We don't want the border shut down. So I'm going to throw back to you for commentary on that.
I agree with you. MAGA, America First, that speaks to our Republican Party. I agree with you that it's so much bigger than any one candidate. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that's who we are as a party. We are the America First Party. I can't believe that our government is fighting so hard to send billions of dollars to Ukraine to secure their border, while ours is wide open, while we have fentanyl, illegal immigration, sex trafficking, and even worse, dangerous people coming into our country. And if you want to talk about guns are being trafficked in and out. And if you want to talk about COVID, they locked us down, the Democrats, while they kept the border wide open. We have 500,000 homeless in our country. Why are the Democrats taking care of illegal immigrants over veterans, over American citizens? And I think when we talk about those messages, the America First mantra is appealing to people of all stripes.
That's right.
And that is the narrative moving forward. Going into 2024, we need to talk about how Joe Biden abandoned East Palestine after the Pete Buttigieg and Biden derailment. We need to talk about that Joe Biden was vacationing on the beach in Delaware while Maui was burning. The Democrat Party is the America Last Party, and Republicans are the America First Party.
Oh, yeah. And the border issue is actually, it's gotten to the point now where I'm hearing from people down into Panama, and all the other people we're hearing from. We may have past the point of no return. And it's so well organized as to these NGOs. It's a very organized infrastructure. And by 2024, by the end of Joe Biden's term, there may be as many as 10 million plus illegal immigrants in the United States of America, which is huge. But you know what, we need to get that fixed. That's not what we're about at all. And the only way to do that is to vote for the candidate that we know is going to do it, period. That we know that is going to fix all these issues. And America First is important versus sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. You know, I mean, that's just getting out of control there. But sir, I want you to give us here in the remaining moments that we have marching orders, specific. And I'm going to pay very particular attention, and I'm going to help, you know, bucket brigade style do it, and then bring it back on for follow-ups. Your organization is starting to build out, A, and B, I want you to also lead this off by asking, or by telling everybody what kind of support you're getting from the GOP. If you don't mind me saying, Ronna McDaniel has still not responded to your request. She could be using you as a great ground game builder, and the GOP needs to be actively involved. Has she gotten in touch with you? A, but that's not going to stop us. B, what do we do to circumvent that? Just do it anyway, on our own.
Well, you just asked me for a lot, so let me start.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Presler. In January 2023 of this year, I launched an organization called Early Vote Action, earlyvoteaction.com. And I know this is contentious, but the reason why I launched it is, guys, I firmly believe that if we as a party wait to vote on one day in November of 2024, then Joe Biden has already won re-election. We saw what happened to Kerry Lake in Arizona. We saw that paper ballots ran out in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, and Harris County, Texas. We saw that it snowed on Election Day in Washoe County and Reno, Nevada, a Republican area, and Adam Laxalt lost by 8,000 votes. If we are going to be successful and together defeat Joe Biden next year in 2024, we must engage in an all-of-the-above approach to voting. Yes, Election Day voting, but think about our truckers, our pilots, our police officers, our firefighters, members of the United States military, healthcare professionals. We must have a plan that people can either vote early in person or vote by mail, lock in their vote, and get every Republican vote in to defeat Joe Biden next year in 2024. And my organization specifically is focused on Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. If we win those 5 states based on the Electoral College and the math, we will win the White House in 2024. Now, asterisk, everybody that's watching the Pete Santilli show right now, please hear me loudly, please hear me clearly. I know that we want to win next year, and we're so fired up for 2024. But guys, there is no lull. There is no stopping and putting our feet on the brake pedal. We have elections this year in 2023. Kentucky, governorship. Daniel Cameron is running for governor. We currently have a Democrat in that seat. Mitch McConnell's health has not been great. If he steps down, if he is forced to retire, that Democratic governor will be the one picking his replacement. And he's already said that he will not follow the law. We must elect Daniel Cameron as the next governor of Kentucky this November. Louisiana, Jeff Landry is running for governor. Their election is not in November unless there's a runoff. The election in Louisiana is on Saturday. I didn't say Tuesday. I said Saturday, October 14th, the same day that LSU is playing Auburn at Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge. Yes, there is a value to early voting. Some people may go to the football game and they may not vote. Please, there is early voting in the state of Louisiana from September 30th through October 7th. If you're not going to be in town on Saturday, October 14th, request an absentee ballot or vote early in person for Jeff Landry for governor. They currently have a Democrat. Let's flip that from blue to red. New Jersey. I'm currently in New Jersey. I will be here in Bergen County, Gloucester County, and Union County. I taught months ago how to get out the vote and how to ballot harvest and how to ballot chase. Now the ballots have been sent out. We're going to be knocking on Republican doors, doing the ballot chasing that I've been talking about, getting Republicans used to it and preparation for success next year. Why is this important? Because New Jersey currently has a trifecta Democrat state government. That means that Governor Murphy, the Democrat, can pass whatever he wants. And so if we take 7 seats in the General Assembly, if we take 6 seats in the state Senate, we will flip the legislature and Governor Murphy will not be able to pass reckless and dangerous legislation. Now we have some wind at our sails because current Democratic Senator Murphy, he has been indicted for bribery. So, oh my gosh, we have now an opportunity to have a check and balance on the Democrats in the state of New Jersey. I'm almost done. And Virginia, in the state that I live, we have state legislative races. And to every person, you hear me loudly and clearly. If you want to elect Trump, if you want to elect DeSantis, whoever, I don't care. There's nothing more important than we can do than to give Governor Glenn Youngkin a Republican legislature this November. Every seat in the legislature is up. And if we win and give Governor Glenn Youngkin control of the Senate and the House of Delegates, Virginia will be in play next November to elect a Republican president. And almost done. In Pennsylvania, we have a Supreme Court election. Everybody needs to support Judge Carolyn Carluccio as the next Pennsylvania Supreme Court justice. So that way, if Governor Shapiro, a Democrat, locks down the state, forces mandates, the Supreme Court will be able to have a check and balance. And then we have Mississippi. Tate Reeves is running for governor. And Pete, thank you for letting me have that monologue.
My goodness, really important. Let's have a discussion again, because there's going to be an ongoing project between now. Because, I say we don't wait till 2024. Today is 20. What we're doing today is 2024. Is there any way we can get, because you know how we get infiltrated. If everybody starts voting Republican, they see this massive wave, they're going to infiltrate with their, we won't even call them rhinos. I mean, some of them are like just with a Democrat agenda. The left-right paradigm's the same. Is there any way we can have these people like they did with McCarthy? Just have a contract with the people saying, if I don't fulfill this, this obligation to the people for their vote, then I'll step aside or something. Is there any way to do that to ensure? There's some questions about Youngkin, and I understand what you're saying. I'm saying we vote all Republican or nothing. We have no choice. We really don't. We need to put these leftist radicals away for the next 50 years. You think we can do a contract with these Republican candidates?
Well, I would hope that the contract would be when they get sworn in, their oath to the Constitution. I would hope that would be a contract that they would abide by. But I'll tell you, my fear is Florida is so Republican. We have 500,000 more registered Republicans and Democrats. I do have a warning for the people of Florida that because the state is becoming so Republican, we will have infiltrators. And that's why the primary process is so important. Florida's a closed primary state. And so when people need to understand is the general election candidate most likely will come from a lot of these primaries. So if your candidate is not supporting the legislation that you want to see passed in the state, then it is so important that we either find an alternative for that person or you at least participate in the primary process. But yes, there will be infiltration as states become more Republican going into 2024.
earlyvoteaction.com, and I'm going to do my part. I've taken very good notes in this segment, and I promise you, I promise America, that I will fulfill my obligation to help out in this effort, because we don't need NGOs on this side. Thank you very much, Scott Presler, for joining me. We'll see you on the next visit. I'd like to invite you to come back on for future updates. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you very, very much for tuning in with Scott Presler. Now, what do we do with this information? We're not just info consumers. We got to take action, action, action. Thank you very much, Scott, for joining me. I appreciate it. We got to take action, folks. There's no sitting around waiting for somebody else. Scott Presler is a leader in this regard, but he's the leader of a grassroots movement, inspiring us grassroots individuals to step up and take action.
you prepared for life's unexpected twists and turns? Lockdowns, natural disasters, power outages, or any situation that makes it tough to get your hands on a good meal. Time waits for no one, and neither do emergencies. PetePrepStore.com is the ultimate in long-term emergency food preparedness and supplies. You're not just buying food, you're buying peace of mind. Our meals are designed to be nutritious, delicious, and have a 25-year shelf life. Yes, you heard that right. 25 years. We source high-quality, non-GMO ingredients and use advanced freeze-drying technology to lock in taste and nutrients. Forget last-minute runs to the grocery store. Pete Prep Store is a click away and delivers right to your doorstep. Why risk the well-being of you and your loved ones? With Pete Prep Store, you're always prepared. Make the smart choice today. Visit PetePrepStore.com and place your order today. This isn't just food, it's your lifeline in times of crisis. Don't wait for an emergency to prepare. Be proactive. PetePrepStore.com. Be prepared. Be secure. Be ready. Always.